This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, we have the pleasure of being with Mr. Michael Port. Michael is an American entrepreneur, author, and angel investor. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. Michael's 9 books have been translated to 29 languages. And after spending a decade delivering thousands of paid speeches on the world's biggest stages, Michael sold his first company, Book Yourself Solid Worldwide, and founded Heroic Public Speaking with his wife, Amy Port. Heroic Public Speaking develops and nurtures the next generation of thought leaders, as well as CEOs and founders, best-selling authors, business owners, and movement leaders. For more information, visit heroicpublicspeaking.com. Welcome to the show, Michael. We appreciate you having you on.
Thank you very much.
I am a big fan, and I'm super excited because I've been through, in full disclosure, Michael's and Amy's training at Heroic Public Speaking, and quite honestly have experienced some incredible breakthroughs there in my career, and felt so inclined to have Michael on to share us a little bit about what he and Amy have been able to produce over there, which is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So thank you, Michael, for spending some time. And, I like to start off by letting you introduce yourself to a little bit about your story. How'd you get to being Mr. Michael Port, the Heroic Public Speaking CEO? Tell us kind of a little bit about your story of how you, left the speaking career and got into this gig.
Well, I actually left speaking early in the development of Heroic Public Speaking because I was working with a client named Jay Baer, very well-known speaker and author. And I had an idea for him to use at the opening of the speech that I just thought would slay. I thought, this is a great idea. And for a half a second, I thought, wait, maybe I should just hold on to that one because it's good. And of course, I let that go and I told him what it was. But after that session, I was really reflecting on that moment. And I realized that if I'm going to be working with the best in the world, I can't be competing against them for gigs. It's a little bit like if Roger Federer was Rafa Nadal's coach and they played each other in the finals at Wimbledon. It just would be weird. It's just not done. So I in general try to avoid conflict of interest, and I always do my best to disclose any potential conflict of interest. And so as a result, I decided it would probably be best for me just to focus on the business. It's better for the business anyway if I just focus on the business, but also because my students, my clients, they need to know that every single thing that I have is theirs. Every idea that I have, they will get. And they will never have to worry about having to go up against me to get a gig. Now, the other problem is if you're a teacher, your goal should be that your students become better than you. And so I would be effectively working my way out of getting booked. I would lose all the gigs because the people I'm going to be working with would get better than me. So it would end up closing out my career as a professional speaker anyway. So it was better, for me not to do it. And now I can really focus on the business.
I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. Either way, you made the right decision, and I appreciate you mentioning that. But yeah, I mean, you've written several books, one of which I have on my shelf. Actually, several of them I listened to on audio. Book Yourself Solid, The Referable Speaker. And as you've built out your business with you and Amy at the helm, let's talk about balance for a second. I'm balanced man, and I believe balance is really focusing on your highest priorities in life. But why is balance important to you and to Amy? As I've watched you guys, as you've been teaching us and delivering great content, why is it important to keep those priorities in life, really close to heart?
What's your definition of balance?
So my definition of balance, I bring out in achieving balance is working on your highest priorities. It's not equilibrium. It's not running back and forth on, hey, let's equal parts. So, and this is, I'm kind of putting some words in your mouth. As I've talked to Amy offline, I've noticed that you have a great relationship. You have a working relationship, and you know what I call couplepreneurs. You're in business together, and you run this business, very effectively, and that's okay. I mean, some married entrepreneurs, they have silent partners, the partner that is supportive on the back end, at home, each his own. But let's talk about that. Why is that important for you and Amy to have those things in life that are really highest priority, working while you're working at the business?
Yeah, I really appreciate that definition. It helps because balance, is a very amorphous concept. And I've heard a lot of people address it in many different ways. I think I'm aligned with your definition because I really do focus on priorities. You can do everything you want, just not at the same time. You can have everything you want, just not at the same time. You've got to make choices. And I've learned over the years that the better I am at making really clear choices to which I give a full, often non-reversible commitment, the better I perform and the happier I am with the activities that I'm doing. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They had some interest in our business, and they said, well, what would you do if, you didn't own Heroic Public Speaking anymore? I said, well, there's 1,000 things I would do. They're like, well, you have to know now. And I said, I'm not sure that's true, but I'll think about it a little bit more. And I did. And one of the things that I've recognized to be true for me, at least, is that I feel like I can do many, 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 many different things with real pleasure. There's some things that are consistent about the activities, meaning, if I stopped working and I really started focusing on my sailing, I could sail 6-8 hours a day because everything that I do, I look at as an opportunity to pursue proficiency or mastery of the craft. And so that's what's most interesting to me. And so if there's a subject that I'm interested in, I can focus on that for a year or 2 or 3, and then I'll move to another subject and I'll focus on that for a couple of years, and then something else for a couple of years. And that's worked very, very well for me. I tend to be somebody who operates at the extremes. I've never been a very moderate person. So when I first heard people talk about balance early in my career, I thought it was an absolute impossibility for me because I just don't do moderation. I'm 52 years old, almost 53. And I really don't think that I'm going to change dramatically in the next 50 years and all of a sudden become an extremely moderate person. I would be surprised. I'd like to see what it's like. I've never even had a week of moderation in my life. So very often when you look at people who've had great success, they are people who operate at the extremes. You don't become one of the best athletes in the world by dabbling in the sport, by being moderate in your approach to getting good. You don't build extraordinary companies by dabbling in it. You don't build the best speeches in the world and become the best performer of those speeches in the world by dabbling in it. And so I think that, for me, I find what I think, I would consider balance in the full commitment to the things that are most important to me. And so I have full commitment to my children. I have full commitment to my wife. I have full commitment to my business. I have full commitment to my employees. And I have full commitment to my parents, my in-laws, specific friends, and I have full commitment to certain hobbies that I do. But there are certain times where I spend more time on some of those activities than others. So right now we're in a very accelerated growth phase for the business. So I expect the next 3 years to be very focused on the business, more of our time into the business than off doing some of our other activities. We've got 2 kids will be out of the house, only 1 left in the house. So we'll have some more time for those kind of things. So it was a good time. The last 3 or 4 years has been a really steady state, a few hours of work a day, events every, a couple events every month, really steady, really easy, really even flow. But now we have different priorities. So I'm not going to have that kind of even flow. It's going to be much more extreme for the next couple of years. But that works for me personally. And I don't feel like there are too many parts of my life that I'm sacrificing as a result.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this is something. When I first wrote Achieving Balance, we were talking about, people were saying balance doesn't exist. Balance doesn't exist. I said, well, maybe it's the definition of balance.
Yeah.
How do you define it? So we interviewed hundreds of business owners and found that very much matches up with what you talk about of, hey, it's living priorities, but there's also what I call times and seasons, which you just kind of brought up.
Yeah.
You may have a time where you need to focus things in a different, angle. Maybe health is a real concern. Maybe there's a family issue, or maybe business needs it for a second. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the business often will dictate what the pace is like, meaning the choices you make in the business. So when COVID hit, we had a choice at that time. Mm-hmm. We could have gone very heavily into video training, online training. We were getting requests for it every day from big companies. So the opportunity was there, and our team would have had to work like the dickens. We would be super busy. We'd be hiring more people. It would be this big push. And just because the opportunity is there doesn't mean that's a reason to do it. There's always opportunities. And we decided not to do it, to maintain our focus on the kind of programming that we deliver, even if it meant that, we'll take a bit of a dip in the business. Fortunately, we're responsible. We're relatively frugal in the way that we approach our spending. And so we had a long runway that, we could sit on the tarmac for a little while and even, go down roll down the runway, and we'd be fine for about 1.5 years just in the business itself. And so we decided that was a better approach for us, in large part because we were concerned about our team. And we thought this is not a great time for us and our team to put the majority of our focus on the business. Our priorities are a little different right now. And that's why we made the choice to establish very specific metrics around what a steady state looks like. What are all the health metrics? This will give us a fair amount of space to take care of our families, to take care of our health, to take care of our employees, and also, to wait out this period of time because we don't know exactly what's coming. And for us, that was great because it gave us a lot of freedom, and it was really quite meaningful for us, that period of time. As difficult as it was, it actually turned out to be really meaningful. And then now, once we knew we were 100% out of that in 2023, we went back full speed. And I expect we'll have a growth of 3x by 2026.
Wow. I love that. I love that where your priorities was very much focused on you, your family, your own balance, and your employees balance.
Yeah.
This is a great segment because I found you guys in 2020. I found you during COVID.
Yep, that's right.
And I had someone that referred me, which is kind of your MO. You really work with referred only clients, at least the majority share that come in, which let's talk about some of your secret sauces here. Let's talk about how you've been able to grow, which you've kind of alluded to, like the growth is coming and it's already beginning here in 2023. But how have you been able to scale your business, you and your wife as couplepreneurs, while keeping that balance? How have you been able to, really grow this thing while focusing on your highest priorities in life?
Interestingly enough, the fact that we're married and we work together, it's one of the things that actually produces balance for us. I couldn't imagine working all day long away from my wife and then coming home and just having a couple hours with her at night. Now, granted, we're not in the same office. Her office is on the other side of the house. I'm here, obviously yesterday she was at our headquarters. I wasn't. So we're not together every single second of the day, and we do different things. But we're constantly interacting in one way, shape, or form over the course of the day, even if we're not in the same room. Her name comes up regularly. My name comes up regularly. We're so integrated in that way. And so maybe we don't actually think about balance that much. It's not something we talk about, like we want more balance in our life. But maybe what we've done, which is kind of the same thing, is we've integrated all the different aspects of our life in a way that allows us to be as leveraged as we can be, from a positive perspective, not a deficit perspective, but we're leveraging the fact that we work together and we live together. We get more time together that way, but we're also really conscious about time, place, and topic. So if I mention something in the evening or in the weekend, or even just the middle of the day, and Amy doesn't want to talk about it, she'll say time, place, topic. And the same thing, if she says something I don't want to talk about, I'll say time, place, topic. It's either the wrong time, the wrong place, or the wrong topic, or all three. And then we just table it and we go, right. Let's put that on the agenda for tomorrow during the actual working day. And so, we just have we have like lots of guardrails in there. Another area, that's important, from a balance perspective for couples that work together is, especially for us where we're public facing, is how much does our audience get? How much of us do our students get? And which do we get to keep for ourselves? And so there are certain aspects of our lives that we've just decided we don't share those. There's nothing like weird about them. It's not like we have like an alternative lifestyle or something that people would be like, I had no idea. I don't want people to start to project anything onto that. It's just, we want privacy in certain areas. We are not naturally inclined towards full disclosure all the time. We are not of this current generation that lives on social media and reality TV shows and would love to just share everything that happens to them. Brene Brown, she's her focus is on vulnerability. And she says, look, vulnerability is not, I don't know what her language is, but it's not verbal diarrhea. It's not just sharing everything there is about you. You got to be really conscientious about what you do and don't share. So that's another type of balance for us. So I guess, in talking to you, the more that I think about it, we do really think about balance a lot. We just don't use that word often, but we're hyper intentional about our choices. And I think it's one of the reasons that our business has done well, and one of the reasons that people refer regularly to us. We're so intentional. Every time we do an event and somebody's new to us, we'll hear again and again and again, I've never been to an event that's so intentional. Everything seems so thought out that there's a reason you do everything you do, and you explain what these reasons are. So, we want to show people why we do what we do and why we're making the choices we make. We just think that's helpful for their experience. But the intentionality is what gives us the kind of balance that we need to live the kind of life that works for us. And there is no one way to do it. What I really want to avoid in all of the work that I do is what one of our students referred to, Sue Geyer referred to as success bullying. I'd never heard the term before, and she was working on her speech and she used it. And I thought, oh my God, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like, I saw an Instagram video, or someone showed me an Instagram video, and the woman was like a workout person, like a fitness personality type. And, it was like all these little quotes of hers that were basically success bullying. Like, if you don't make a better choice today, your life will always be worse tomorrow. Like it's kind of beating up on people for not doing everything perfect and better. And, and at some point you're like, look, I just want to be a regular person for a couple of days and just do good work and not always obsess on how I can be the most perfect, optimized, brilliant version of myself that,
Yes.
it's just the nature of the self and business help community. So, we just watch out for that. I think we're very intentional, but we're also recognize that we're more balanced if we're not always trying to be perfect.
Love it.
Because it's a more honest way of living for us. But I do think everybody makes their own choices around lifestyle and what's meaningful. And I can't judge anybody else's choices, I go to bed by 9 o'clock at night. I'd go to bed at 8 o'clock if I could. But, some people would hate that. They'd be like, you're insane. You're missing the best part of the day.
So I love it. I love you talking about this because there's so many things here that the fact that, it works really well for you together. I know some couples, they're couplepreneurs and they hate working together, and it's very awkward for them. It actually causes relationship problems. So the fact that you guys are so intentional, it is very clear. In fact, I found myself a lot of time asking, what is Michael and Amy doing right here? And it may be like you're doing a Q&A. I'm like, oh, are they setting us up for something? It just kept me on my toes the entire time. When there's something behind this, right? Like it was
I hope in a good way.
No,
when
in a
you
good
say,
way.
are they
It kept me on
setting
my
us up for
toes.
something? It sounds like a bait and switch or something.
No, not in a bait and switch. I just wondered there's a hidden meaning here, right? Like there's something they're getting at. No, the way that you guys had it lined up is exactly right. Like it was very intentional, the whole process through. And I love that. But I also like that you guys have boundaries. You call them guardrails. I call them boundaries.
Yeah.
You have boundaries for work. You have boundaries for relationships. You have boundaries for your time. I'm a big proponent of what are your values? Find what you value, put that into your calendar, live it very intentionally, set up boundaries and guardrails for your time, say no to the things that are going to, sabotage those boundaries, and be intentional about it. If you are, time is an asset. Time is your greatest tool because it allows you to achieve the goals you set. Yeah. So I love that you talked about that. And I do believe that your hyper intentionality about your choices is one of the reasons that you guys have done so well and that you're so referable, which is, your latest book, Referable Speaker.
Yeah.
Obviously the referable speaker and HPS, heroic public speaking, is fantastic. I've been through a lot of programs. Great names, Brian Tracy, and others out there who just have done fantastic work. But being there with you guys at the headquarters, I noticed something that I rarely ever see in any program I've ever done. Usually I go through a coaching or training, I'm like, okay, there's a couple of nuggets or there's some things I should change. But I felt completely transformed from day one stepping on your stage. I want you to talk about this. I'm going to pick this out because I was there and I can do this right now, and I have your permission to do that. But let's talk about how you create such a transformational experience for your clients, because I think that is, that's second, I think, to your intentionality, or it has very much to do with your intentionality on this. I know you guys are intentional about it. But I think that is your secret sauce. I think that is what's really made the name that you guys have for yourself with HPS.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we do focus on transformation because ultimately, for the work that we do with the kind of people we work with, if they want to get better at this and really either build a career around it or leverage it to grow other aspects of their professional life, it usually takes more than just a little improvement. And so we design for major transformation. We don't design for small improvement. And so we specialize in working with people that want to become best in class. We don't work with people who don't want to get better at this. We used to, when we had contracts with big companies, all the big, name it, we probably were there. Half the time the people who came in the room didn't want to be there. But, it was a corporate thing, company thing. They said you had to go get better at this thing. So maybe they'll get like a little bit of improvement. But we never really had enough time to change the way they saw the world. And so what we focus on, in addition to teaching the craft, is changing the way our students see the world as it relates to the work we're doing. Obviously, we don't try to change the way they see the world around things that are outside of our purview, right? They're coming to us for something specific. That's what we're focused on. Because if you want to get in our work, if you want to get better at thought leadership and performance, often there are certain principles that if you adhere to, will start to change the way you do the work, such that you start getting better much faster, not incrementally, but exponentially. And so when we're designing, we're not designing this course or the courses we teach as courses to share information. And I think that's what a lot of adult learning courses are focused on. Even if they're longer term programs or trainings, they're usually information based. And that can be very helpful. Sometimes you need information or how-tos. And we will share all of that. And in fact, generally what we're teaching is stuff that people didn't even know they needed to know, because the craft is very substantial. And if you haven't been exposed to the development of the craft, you wouldn't know that the craft even exists. So what we do, however, is we focus on vision, not just information. And so in our industry, there are generally two different categories of educators. There are experts and there are visionaries. And an expert is generally someone who delivers today's best practices. They'll hold up a mirror and show you what's working today, and it can be very helpful. 7 tips for more YouTube followers, or 30 days to, I don't know, a slimmer mid waistline. It could be a million different things, and they're usually information based. They figure, well, if people have the information, they'll be fine. That's all they need. The visionary, however, what they do is they tend to challenge the status quo in a particular space and offer new or alternative approaches that change the way, in the case of a speaker, the audience feels, thinks, and acts, which is really should be the job of both the expert and the visionary. But what often happens to the expert is the expert won't realize that if they want to change what people do, it's not enough just to change what they think, because first we need to change how they feel about the subject, how they feel about themselves in relation to what they have to do to get where they want to go, etc. And a really great thought leader will always focus first on how people feel, and then working to change how they feel so that they're in the right place, mindset, state of being, in order to think differently, to actually absorb, consume, process the new ideas. And then once they're able to do that, well, then they can start going and implementing. That's where the acting happens. They start doing something. But if you skip the feeling part, you just aren't as effective. And so we bring more than today's best practices, because in fact, today's best practices in our field are, for the most part, shite. That's the Irish way of saying something else. So that's why it's not a curse. It's completely benign. I distracted myself. So, the problem with our industry is that most of what people are doing is the status quo that they're doing because they've seen other people doing. And so we come in here and we break apart the status quo, which is often uncomfortable for people. And then we're introducing lots of new ideas and new information. But we're primarily in the initial parts of the development focusing on helping our students feel differently about this work so that they can think differently about it. And as a result, they progress so much more quickly and they have transformation because they feel so different about this. They feel sometimes they'll say like a different person once they're done. And of course, they're not a different person, but now they're much more open-minded. They're more expansive and they're thinking about this work. They have certain principles that they adhere to when they're doing this work. And as a result, the work is very different for them. So they feel transformation. And that's the key for any of us that are trying to make any kind of change. And if we want to create transformation, we've got to first focus on the feeling. How does the audience feel about this now? How do they need to feel about this in order to consume these ideas and then act on them? And then what am I going to do to influence how they feel so that I can give them the ideas that they need to do what they want to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, it sums it up. I mean, thinking about the last 3 months of being there with the HBS HQ and my experience, but you guys have something that we say. So some people say, have a motto or have a brand that that really encapsulates what it is you stand for, your mission statement, whatever, your vision. But we do this pledge. And at first I'm like, okay, all right.
It's like, this is a little corny.
It's hokey. No, it's hokey. But no, but I know that like the best marketers I've learned from in the world have said, you have to have something like this in order to create a following of people that believe it. Because I can say it one time, it doesn't mean that they're going to latch onto it. Yeah. But if you have a pledge or some, mantra, another way of putting it, people can gather around it. Yeah. So part of your pledge, you say a speech has the power to change the world and the people in it, including the speaker. Mm-hmm. So this is what people feel when they go through your program. Mm-hmm. Every single person I've talked to in our cohort has felt that kind of change to them. And I didn't honestly believe it. I was like, yeah, right. And I'm a human development guy. Yeah, I'm going to change. But I felt that day one so much that I told my wife, I said, this is changing our business. And I've had all these great ideas. And this is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do more in-person events. It just started a chain of reaction, which, you hear this all the time. From your students, but you guys do it. You don't just say it, you do it. And what I love about what you're talking about here is you break these big ideas. And you actually had a book and a speech that talked about this. Goodness, I feel bad. I don't remember, but it was a big idea.
Think Big
manifesto.
Manifesto.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Think Big manifesto. Where, this really sets people apart from here's some information and let's make you a little bit better. Yeah. So this transformational process, and the reason why I gravitate to this, Michael, is because in my next book, Balanced Growth, if you can market all you want, and you're a marketing guy, you know this, you can market all you want, but if what you provide doesn't match up to what you're saying you're marketing, it will be dead on arrival. It will never be a referable speech, training, coaching program, financial planning practice, whatever it is, people will not refer you.
Yeah. Look, when I started this business and I looked at the other providers in the space, I thought there were some really lovely people, offering training programs. And at the same time, I also felt that they felt that a lot of them seemed very marketing focused, meaning they may be great marketers, but can the product deliver? Is the product as good as the marketing? And what I've heard in the space is generally no. Like that's generally the feeling in the space. So I said right from the beginning, I said, I want to be an educational institution. I want people to think of us as an educational institution, not a marketing or a sales company. And in fact, how can we build this company without a marketing department? How do you do that? And, 90% of the people who come to us, and we have, I don't know how many, off the top of my head, I'd have to look at the dashboards, but, there's a couple thousand people that are referred to us every year just from our alumni. They don't get kickbacks. There's no affiliate commissions or anything like that. But they do it because they've had transformation. That's the ticket. There's a really key component to the referral nature of the business. So everybody wants referrals. Everybody loves referrals. Everybody knows that referrals close faster, at higher rates than almost any other type of lead. And the reason I think we get so many referrals is because people have real, true change that makes them feel like they've changed who they are. And when they've changed something about themselves fundamentally, they want to share that with people that they care about and people that they know because they're proud of it. They also are 150% confident that the person who they send will have the same experience, which is of course key, but they only are confident because they've had it to such a degree that it is life-changing. And we're not like we're not a hokey organization. We're not a personal development organization in terms of what we do, what we teach, but everybody changes personally because they grow so much professionally. You can't get better professionally without growing personally in some way, because most of our business problems are just personal problems in disguise. If you're having trouble writing a script or performing a speech at a really high level and haven't done the work to make it better, that's a personal problem. You haven't been willing to do it. That's a personal issue. It's not I don't really know what to do about it. It's kind of confusing. That's not the issue. The issue is I haven't been willing to actually do the deep work over long periods of time to figure out how to be one of the best in the world at this. So no one's obligated to do that, but that's why there's such personal change. So it's really important that you focus on that transformation piece, because if you're just getting people incremental results, like incrementally better, you're not going to get as many referrals. It's not something that somebody is going to think about or care about. And so the one metric that we hold most dear is our Net Promoter Score. And the Net Promoter Score effectively is an evaluation of whether or not somebody would refer someone else to you. That's the most important question that, we need to have answered. And so everything we do needs to get people to say yes. And the way we figured out how to do it is through the efficacy of the work and the experience we provide. So our Net Promoter Score for our 2-day events is 100. Now, if you know Net Promoter Scores, you might almost not believe that, because a Net Promoter Score ranges from -100 to 100. So Apple, which is one of the most beloved companies in the world,
right?
By Apple users, not by non-Apple users, but by Apple users.
There's a difference. Right?
And those are the people being surveyed on a Net Promoter Score. You have to use the product. You can't give a Net Promoter. It's like someone, writes a review of a book they never read. You're like, come on, really? They just don't like the idea that there's a book about X, so they give it a bad review. That's not fair. But Apple is at about 65. And they're one of the highest ranked companies. A lot of the big banks are in the negatives, which doesn't surprise anyone who's listening right now. But to get a Net Promoter Score of 100 means every single person who is at that event says, I would refer this to somebody else. And, we've got thousands of people coming through these things. And then for our long-term trainings, our 7-month trainings, our Net Promoter Score ranges from 97 to 99.
Wow.
So if our Net Promoter Scores are at that number, we're going to keep getting those referrals. And so if you're not measuring whether or not somebody will refer to you, you don't know whether or not the choices you make are helping increase the referrals or hurting and decreasing the referrals. So we like that as a metric because it guides us.
Yeah, you have to track it if you want to improve.
Helps us stay balanced, Travis.
Yes, it does, Marco. Well, it's incredible. You don't even have a sales marketing department when, to create this type of change. But this goes back to
just to be fair, we just hired a couple people literally just last month to come and work in our admissions department.
Sure.
Because we vet everybody that comes through. And then we are going to be building a marketing department because we're on track. We have plans to triple the size of the company by 2026. And in order to do that, we do need a marketing department to help drive mostly internal marketing, because we're building so much new programming for our students. We've got to make sure that we're reaching them and bringing them into those new training programs. And so, that's something that we need at this point to get to the next stage of our development.
Sure thing.
I just mentioned it because, historically we haven't needed it. And, we've been a very profitable company, and, it's been a successful company. So
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because, when you got started, the focus wasn't on marketing and sales. The focus was to create a transformational experience. It was very intentional so that you'd have incredible, growth from referrals, which you have done. Check, check, check. But now getting to the next level to continue that scaling and growth, it makes sense to have a marketing department. Now that you have a transformational system that's already proven, this is where I struggle with a lot of my clients they want to grow, they want to scale. But if they don't have a transformational process, there is no point in focusing on marketing and sales until that is solid. And I really appreciate you bringing this up. Listen, I know we're getting to the end here, and what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are struggling with balanced growth, with trying to, grow and scale, but keeping those priorities that they, which typically are family and health and spirituality, keeping those at the top of their priority list?
Sure. Well, I'd say first and foremost, don't build something that you think you should build. Just build something that you want to build. Not because it's going to make you cool or famous, but what's the reason that you're doing this? Full stop. And for me, it's really easy. I get to work with my wife every day. I get to build, I get to have the kind of schedule where I get to see my kids all the time. I get to have a certain amount of control over, when I work, when I don't work, I'm really just clear about why we're building what we're building and, why we have the financial targets that we have. Because at some point, you got to figure out what enough means. I saw a really big boat, and the name of the boat on the transom, which is the back of the boat, it said "Never Enough." And I thought, oh, maybe someday I'll name a boat. I'll just name it Enough. Because I think that really does help with intentionality. Because if you don't have a benchmark for where you're trying to go, then that's when that's when all of a sudden everything starts crumbling in on you, because you're doing way more than you need to. You're over processing all the time. You're working towards things you don't need to work towards. You're doing things that you think you're supposed to do. And so sometimes less is much, much more. So I think that's important. And then I just want to say one more thing, because it speaks to what you mentioned about, well, first we focused on creating a transformational product before we thought about, well, let's try to get everybody excited about this thing that we don't actually have. Look, I was an actor. I have a master's in acting from NYU. I went to Tulane before I went to graduate school for acting, and I studied psychology and theater. Then I talked my way into a job in the business industry, in the fitness industry on the business side, for which I was totally unqualified for. And I told them, look, I'm unqualified, but here's my pitch. They gave me the job. I got lucky. I worked my way up, and then I went out on my own. So I have no special background in business. I have no MBA from Harvard. I never really thought of myself as a business person when I was younger. And I always thought of myself as a creative artist of one, kind or another. And I've made a lot of really good decisions, and I made a lot of really poor decisions over the years. But the things that have worked the best are often things that I've just learned by studying real thought leaders. So look, very early in the early 2000s, I read Purple Cow from Seth Godin, and I thought, oh, well, okay, brilliant. The big idea is, if you create something remarkable, people will remark on it. It's very simple. If you're driving down the street and you see, not to the street, driving in the country and you see thousands of brown cows, then all of a sudden there's a purple cow, everybody is going to notice it and go, oh my God, a purple cow. And so what he says is your products are your marketing. And I thought, makes sense. Let me just do that. So for those who are up and coming, listen to the thought leaders, not the think boys. The think boys are the ones who shout at you on social media, with a big house behind them, telling you how to make money fast and how to shortcut and circumvent this and that and the other thing. And, maybe that'll work, here or there. But if you want to really be great at this for your life, there are some real fundamentals in all aspects of business growth and development that you can learn just by reading real thought leaders and actually doing what they suggest you do, which is very different than reading it and going, yeah, I understand that, but I'm going to try it this way. Okay, but why don't you first try it the way that the legitimate thought leader has suggested, given they've been studying this and working on this for decades and decades and decades. Every once in a while, I'll give some advice to, one of the kids who's working in business, and they're like, oh yeah, right, great. And then next week I talk to them and like, so what'd you do? Like, I tried it a little different. I said, how'd it go? Not so well. Like, well, why didn't you just try it this way? I'm not saying I'm always right, but you got to look at somebody and how they've learned over the years and from what, because I think it's really critical to think of oneself as a learner, not as somebody who knows things, but someone who learns things, because you will relearn things that you've already learned because you'll learn a better way. And so you don't have to, if you just know it, you might stop learning. So we're always constantly learning. So I'm saying is I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. Every, great thought leader doesn't have all the answers, but there are certain things that they know how to do really well because they've learned it again and again and again and again. And so Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's partner, he said, I really like to learn from other people's mistakes. And, it's one of the reasons he's done very well.
Well said. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciated your thoughts, and, not to summarize, but to summarize, balance isn't doing everything at the same time. You can do a lot of great things, great, just not all at the same time. Focus on boundaries, make a transformational system and process that you can put in place for your business. And then, if you want to get to the next level, look at the marketing side of it. Once you have that in place, once you have a net promoter score that's high, but I love that last thought of focusing on real thought leaders, those who have put in the time, the research, and, the energy to produce material that is transformational.
Like Travis Parry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that guy, yeah, he's got a PhD in something. I think maybe family or something like that. Yeah, I love this. But thank you, Michael. I appreciate your time. I know we need to go. If you love this as much as I did, share, subscribe to the podcast, make someone's day, and share this interview that we've done here with Mr. Michael Port. Thanks again, my friend. Appreciate your time for being here on the show. And until next time, remember everyone, live life on purpose.